All right. Welcome, Holly and Amy. This is so exciting. Today is launch day for the book, For She Who Grieves. And these are our fabulous authors, Amy and Holly. And I'm Corey Walmsley. I'm the CEO of Aurora Coriolis Publishing, and I had the pleasure of working with them on their book and helping them get this important message out to the world. So if you're watching us live, welcome. If you're watching the replay, welcome. We will be answering questions. I will be popping up my phone in a second and pulling up the thread so we can see if anybody has questions. So make sure you put them in the comments. We're going to start off letting our authors introduce themselves. So Holly, you want to go first?
Absolutely. So hi, my name is Holly McIlwain, and my real name is Holly Joy McIlwain, which makes the topic of writing a book about grief even more amusing. How does a person whose name is literally Joy get to write a book about grief? It's fun. It's in there. Who am I? I am a wife and a mother, a sister and a friend. I'm the founder of the Brave Women Project, which is a not-for-profit organization that focuses on supporting professional women and this idea of doing one brave thing every day. Writing this book was a tremendously brave thing, and I focus on people in my daily life. I'm a coach and an HR director and a recruiter, and I love to help people live their best life and say yes to something a little bit scary. So I got to meet Amy, and when she tells you who she is, you'll understand why I could not wait to sit down with her and tell some stories.
Awesome. Thanks, Holly. Thank you. So my name is Amy Hooper Hanna, and I co-authored For She Who Grieves, Practical Wisdom for Living Hope with Holly. And it was such a joy writing this book. Seriously, like it was fabulous. You wouldn't think so? I mean, yes, there are tender moments for sure, but overall, this was awesome. So in my professional life, I, like Holly, am a coach, a consultant, a trainer, a teacher. So the pairing was perfect. I help managers and employees basically be better leaders and be better listeners, because I focus on communication skills and interpersonal effectiveness skills and emotional intelligence and all that fun stuff. So the outside of professional life, I am a solo mom of 3 amazing teenagers here in the city. And writing this book, this book, I have to say, I was thinking about this morning. I just have to share this because it just kind of dawned on me this morning. This book it's like emerging from the gates of hell and finding open doors of hope and joy. Like it's actually like an image in my brain. Like and even reading the reviews that are already up, it just feels good. So happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, ladies. So I wanted to start out by talking about what inspired the book. What kind of got this rolling for you? What popped into your head that made you say, hey, we should totally write a book about grief? That would be fun.
Amy's got to start that one. You got to start that one.
So it started for me morning laying in bed. I had just suffered a miscarriage, and one of my neighbors delivered the most beautiful cake. And I ate pretty much the whole thing. And as I'm, just really letting my body heal and my heart start to take shape after this new life was beginning and ended, the words of this book started to pour out of me, and I couldn't really get to a computer with the cake and the bed. And so I started putting just a couple notes for She Who Grieves in my phone. And I tucked it away and I carried it with me. And through the Brave Women Project, we have a monthly support meeting called Come As You Are. For some of those months, they were very ugly. The Come As You Are for me was just very real and raw. And this was before we even had a name. We didn't even know that the Brave Women Project would be the Brave Women Project, but it was a group of women coming together and supporting each other. And once we established as the Brave Women Project, these Come As You Are monthly support sessions became a lifeblood for me. They became the IV that was in my arm, just pumping the good stuff back in. And more of the stories of the women that we get to be sisters with through Brave Women Project helps me to realize that I was not alone in my grief. That grief is a universal experience that everyone experiences differently, and that comparing one person's sorrow to another just doesn't work. But supporting sorrow in whatever shape that it takes is actually healing and hope building. And so I struggled to find just the right way to pull this book out of my iPhone and into the world. And I've had so many beautiful women step alongside me on the path and share their story and their ideas and their hope and their dream and their support. And then Amy steps out of the clouds and into the sun and joined this incredible, crazy ride just about 6 months ago. And through intensity, we were able to pull up together research and sadness and hope and sorrow and practical tips and practical experiences and gentleness and tenderness. Amy, what was that like for you?
You know, it was really inspiring. I mean, what inspired the book was inspiration. And that's what I thought was really neat about this book, and why it was so, fun to write, was because we wrote out of inspiration. You know, we didn't force ourselves to write. We didn't force ourselves to meet. Everything was very synergistic, and just, we would text each other and be like, okay, I'm on a roll. I'm just gonna go with this. Can you just check it out? And then, or like this, hey, this needs work. Or we'd be in a room together and we'd be like, start talking. And then one of us would say, wait, hold that thought. We got to start typing. Like, this is great. This is it. So it just kind of poured out of us, like Holly said. So really the inspiration for the book was pain, suffering, and transformation and relief. I mean, I know in my personal transformation, when you're just feeling hopeless, or like layers of grief or loss compiling over time, you just get really buried. And personally, I just got sick of it. I just was done. And I don't like to see other people suffer. And so I just felt, I knew that I had found things that were helpful to me, and I just wanted to share it with Holly, share it with the Brave Women Project. And in that group, just so much emerged out of those community sessions where we were really connecting with each other, and it just needed to be shared.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing all of that. When I first read the book, so backing it up, when I first read the book, I actually, when I see a book that could be potentially like making me cry, I will sit down with myself and just be like, okay, I'm ready to read these stories, and it's okay. And these aren't personally happening to me, because I thought there could be something in there that I was going to be like, oh my God, this poor person. And I didn't do that. I didn't feel that when I read this book. It was more of a focus on the journey of grief. And there wasn't all of this triggering stuff around the event that caused the grief. And I think that's something that I really appreciated about the book, because it didn't share these stories that were like, a punch in the face, like, here, this is what happened, and this is why I'm grieving. It was, this little bit of that story, and then what happens to us afterwards and how we can grow and change from that. So, I just want to applaud you ladies for doing the book in such a graceful, loving way, because that was just brilliant and so caring. It was like a sister sitting down with you and being like, hey, I got you. I know what you're going through. And this is some of what we've been through too. And this is what some other people have been through too. So I did want to say, there are stories in here. There are absolutely some stories, and they aren't what you were expecting. So if you're watching this and you're thinking like, oh my God, there's going to be these horrible stories. No, it's not like that at all. So that was number one. Number two, how did you gather the stories? Because I know you did a lot of research to create this book. So, how did it come together?
Some of it was really, some of it was really easy because we have such a close network of women who we invited to contribute and in various forms, either through an interview or through an anonymous interview, or we knew their story and we asked for permission to share parts of it. And that's why you'll notice there's some stories have names and some don't. And we felt that it was so critical that we shared these experiences. And one of my favorite parts of the book is that as we write, you don't know who's writing it, whether it was me or if it was Amy. You don't know whose story it is, if it was mine or Amy's or one of our anonymous contributors. So we did a lot of sit downs. We had a lot of conversations over coffee. We had a lot of conversations on couches. We had a lot of phone calls. We had a lot of walks. We had a lot of one-to-one deep connections. And some of these women we knew very, very well. And some of these women we were introduced to. And some of the people who shared their contributions with us were even relaying a story that they were completely moved by from an extension in their life somewhere. And so I will say that it's really hard to pinpoint the stories and who they direct back to. And that was with design. Amy and I wanted people to have an opportunity to find themselves along these pages and not feel a sense of comparison. We kept coming back to this idea, and it was mostly based on a mindset that I had to reframe. I felt, losing a child through miscarriage. It was a very, very early in the pregnancy. It was, 9 weeks. And I felt almost that I couldn't talk about it. I couldn't share it, and people wouldn't feel for me and understand the grief I was experiencing because you couldn't see that I was pregnant at that point. And how do you compare that grief to someone who lost their husband or lost a child at another age that you could pick up and walk around with, and it was very shameful for me to experience grief at that early stage. And that was a theme that women continued to share with us, that there was some sense of shame around their grief at some point, and it prevented them from sharing it and healing through it. And so one of the experiences that I had, the reframing I had, was that sharing my grief was part of the healing process for myself and for someone else. Comparing my grief was going to stifle the healing process for myself, but also prevent a relationship from blooming with another person. And so that reframe was critical, and it actually prepared me for later grief that I experienced over the next 2 years, over the past 2 years. And the other side, Corey, that was amazing that happened was as Amy and I shared the stories that we were collecting, we were moved because we knew the people sharing their stories with us. We looked in their eyes as they shared their stories. We held their hands, we cried with them, we walked with them, and we felt this sense of responsibility for protecting their safety, their space, their hearts, their souls, their healing. And as we put together the words of the book, we would frequently circle back and say, if we share this, who will be harmed? How will they respond? How will the people around them receive it? And we took extra precautions there to anonymize those stories. And some of the people that shared their stories with us willingly, that we name in the book, have turned their grief into such incredible hope that we wanted their names to be part of it. We wanted to point to them because we want our readers to be able to go to them in the future and build off of their hope also.
That's beautiful. I really appreciate the message of not comparing grief. That's something that I had never even thought of before you brought it up. And I think, sharing that kind of message, that makes us all better humans. So yeah. I love that you guys included that in the book. Thank you.
Thank you. Corey, one of the other things that we did, and I like that you kind of acknowledged it a little bit, that you were not re-traumatized by reading things. We took care to talk with clinical professionals. We took care to talk with social workers. We took care to have the book read by professionals in the mental health space. We wanted to be sure that what we had put out there with good intentions and an open heart, we wanted to be sure that the professionals that reviewed the book for us, that looked at it, would be able to support it and say, you know what, this is presented appropriately in a way that would not re-traumatize people who have had any kind of similar experience. And so some of the things that are covered, those sensitive topics like abuse or miscarriage, disease or death, we really wanted to be careful and mindful of how that could trigger someone. And so throughout the book, there's all these little spots where we say, stop. If you need help, here's a number to call. Stop if you need help. Here's a resource that could be appropriate for this part of the book. And we felt that that was just something we needed to do for our readers.
Yeah, I do think that that's important too. I'm right with you there. It's, you can only provide so much in a book. And if people feel that they need more, it's good to say, hey, there is more out there if you feel like this isn't quite getting all of it. So really good add on that. We're going to give Amy a second here to get back in. I know she was having some tech trouble. But while we're waiting, Holly, I was going to ask, was it really challenging to, collect all these stories and make sure that they were anonymous? I mean, you shared some of the steps that you did. Did you find that challenging, or was it pretty easy breezy?
So I talk a lot. I'm a speaker. I've had a couple other books out. I am comfortable with sharing my story, but I realized that I'm not like most normal people. And so what was difficult for us in the process is being sure that we were creating a method and multiple checkpoints to provide people the anonymity. That was the hardest part, was making sure that Amy and I had the framework to support the vision. And the other challenge of that was we hear so many stories. We know so many stories. We know so many people who suffer, and not all stories are pointing at hope yet. They haven't evolved to that point. And so one of the difficult challenges that we had was finding the hope amidst the grief, knowing that it's not just an escalator from grief to hope. It's a roller coaster with it's like the Pennsylvania Turnpike. There's like bumps and bruises and tunnels and all kinds of stuff around it. There's potholes. And so we wanted to make sure that we were pacing appropriately with those individuals who shared their stories with us and trusted us. We wanted to watch out for the potholes. We know that we're going to get them, but we also wanted to make sure that we were being realistic about the presentation of those things and doing so in a way that was respectful and anonymous.
Yeah. Wow. I think it's interesting to dive into everything that went into the book. So I really love that we were able to share about that and talk about, you mentioned the leading toward hope piece. Mm-hmm. And I do think that's really important when you're reading this book to consider, like, there are other stories out there and there are still people who are in the grief, and it's so heavy for them that they aren't ready, or they aren't, they aren't able to move toward hope at that point. So yeah, I think that's a very important message. Thank you. I did want to jump over to our comments because we have a few. We have a few questions. So Kelly says, how has this book changed your thoughts and feelings about each other?
Maybe.
I love you, Holly. I mean, I loved Holly as soon as I met her, so it hasn't really changed. It's just, I think the word sister is a really, it's appropriate. It's appropriate. We got very close, and we were kind of, Holly, you said the other day about how we shared a brain for 300 pages. We did. And as I mentioned in the beginning, like, we just really, bounced off each other. Our ideas, our energy is just very compatible when it comes to just thoughts and insight and articulating it and moving forward with something. So the whole idea of facilitating ideas, improvements, impact, and insight is just something that we do by nature anyway, which is why we're in those professions. So it was great. I mean, we had so much, we really did have so much fun. So it's more fun to come.
Ooh, yay. I mean, I will echo everything Amy said. I'm the youngest child. I don't share well. And sharing the most intimate, tender spots of my journey with another person besides my husband, it's an intimacy that like does define sisterhood. And walking that journey with Amy, it was, she was the perfect person to do this with.
Oh, that was so beautiful. What a wonderful answer. That was totally
Now that I'm crying.
You know what's funny too is what I thought was really cool was during the writing of the book, you know, life is going on, right? And so things are happening, and there would be times where we would text each other and be like, something happened in Holly's neighborhood, and it was traumatic. It was scary. And she was texting me, and we're like using tactics from the book. Like, you need to try, go to page 89. You need to try this. It was great. It was like super supportive. And, but we were eating our own medicine, taking our own medicine. So it was good.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting once you've finished a book to see how much you've personally grown because of that writing journey too. So I love that you're using your own toolkit. Yeah, I did want to share a couple other questions here. First of all, Heidi gives you guys hearts. Joey said, grief is a topic that needs to be talked about more. When I was going through the most difficult time of my life after my brother suddenly passed in a car accident, I suffered silently because the topic is not openly shared in society. So glad you all are putting a spotlight on this topic, sisters.
Yeah, that gives me chills, because that's what it's all about. Like, just the meaning and feeling a connection through reading this book, that, validation and acknowledgement and understanding and connection, all that is part of this book.
Yeah. Yeah. And Joey, thank you for sharing that with us. And we're happy to talk about grief and do it in an empowering way. I have a couple more comments, then we're going to get back to the questions. Allison says, your care and attention to these stories is a real demonstration of love. Thank you, Allison. Yeah, and Allison also commented, I lost my older brother unexpectedly a little over a year ago, and I grieved in silence myself. I've learned through my grief journey that we need to talk about it, develop a common language, and welcome one another into the experience. I've grown tremendously through a support group model. I can't wait to read this book and gift it to others. Thanks for sharing that, Allison. So that actually leads perfectly into my next question, which is, who most needs this book? Probably all of us.
Yeah, anyone who is dealing with, suffering with, contemplating significant loss of, it could be the loss of your soul, and people who are tired of feeling that way and want to get out of a rut and want to think differently about a concept that can be really burdensome. This is more for people who want to feel relief.
Yeah, grief is not just about burying someone in the ground. And that is the gift of the book, that we honor grief and loss in whatever form it is existing in your life. So who most needs this book? Every human that has a heartbeat, because that heart has the capacity to break. And we are about saving the heart lives. We're about saving the parts of a person that the world doesn't always see, that the world doesn't always understand, the world isn't always gentle with. That's the part that we want to be providing a space for in this book, male or female, old or young. It's there.
Grieving or not, that's what other people were saying to me when they looked at the book, and they're like, this is something that I want to have like on hand. I'm not grieving now, but there's so much in the book about again, topics that you wouldn't think would be covered necessarily in a grief book. But like, you hear all these terms thrown around nowadays, if you're in a certain field, maybe, but resilience and forgiveness and acceptance and validation, and these terms that they sound pretty, they sound good, but what does it really mean? And we kind of provide a new take on that in the book, because even those things aren't necessarily what you were taught or what you think they are. Or so when you hear someone else's take on it, it's like, it's those aha moments of like, I hadn't thought of it that way before. It's a reframe on so many things that affect so many people. I mean, those concepts, men, women, young, old, as one of our contributors said, she hopes that younger people read this. I mean, parents can screen it first because there are some pretty heavy stories in there. But young people, it like to the idea of toxic relationships. I mean, for your kids, a lot of us, I have teenagers. So the information presented in this book is almost, it can be preventative, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Allison just mentioned that everyone needs this because loss is a part of life. And most of us don't have the tools, the language, or a clear path to healing and growing through the process. Right.
Exactly. That's very well said. And that is actually something else that's in the book too, is actually words to say to yourself or to someone else. And even things that maybe think twice about saying to someone else, because this is the reaction that got with a certain person. So it's very, very practical pieces in the book.
Amy, one of the things that you just said reminded me of one of my favorite parts of the book is the part that words aren't necessary for. We offer a couple of strategies that are just normal everyday life things, like walking, just physically walking every day, just going for a walk every day and allowing yourself that space to process without words, and how transformational and healing that has been for me. But when I heard that read in the book in one of our readings, I don't know if it was you reading it or me reading it on our Facebook page. I don't know who it was at this point, but I remember I was out for a walk listening to it, and I just felt a sense of relief, reminded that this is a strategy of self-care that I can have every single day. And I'm allowing myself to not feel pressured to have the words to heal.
Right. Right. There's really, like we say in the book, excuse me, there's not like one special secret method. We're not like promoting like, this is the answer to overcoming your grief, but we're providing examples of just little simple movements, little simple words, things that you can do toward, progressing toward the life that you want, or the feeling that you want to achieve. So it's real. I mean, it's simple. Like, well, I shouldn't say that. Sometimes it's really hard to even get out of bed and put one foot in front of the other, which is when support really is helpful.
I think one of the things that struck me, typically whenever I have a friend who's going through grief, I don't know what to say. And I'm a very honest person. So I will flat out text them and be like, hey, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to help you. I'm sending you love and light. I'm sending you big hugs. And I think, you kind of said in the book, like, that's okay. It's okay to not know. It's not okay to not know how to heal or how to move forward or how to support someone. It's all okay. And I think that is kind of a relief for a lot of people too, to understand that like, there's no like, check off this list, top 10 things of how to go over grief or how to, help your friend with grief. And once you get to the bottom, it's all good and everybody can have cookies. Like, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not know how to be okay. And, so really thank you for, giving everyone permission for that in this book. I think that was a really good message too. And speaking of messages, I did want to wrap us up because I know we could talk all morning about this, but I imagine everybody wants to go get a copy of the book, first of all, which we'll tell you how to do in a second. But what big message did you guys want to leave us with from the book?
Go ahead, Amy, go first.
Yeah, I want to carry on to what you just said, Corey, which is it's okay. It's okay. It will be okay. You will be okay. You're more amazing than you realize. Humans are amazing. You're greater than you think you are. It will be okay.
Yeah. Grief is complicated. Joy is simple. Hope is the bridge.
Beautiful messages, guys. Thank you so much for sharing with us about the book, about your journey with the book, and your inspiration, all that good stuff. So we are officially launching this book today, which is why we're on here talking about it. And I wanted you guys to share where we can find this book along with the special offer today.
Well, you can get this book at Barnes & Noble. You can get it on barnesandnoble.com. But today, get it on Amazon because it is just 99 cents for the Kindle version today. Just the Kindle version, 99 cents today. You can order a beautiful copy that will look like this as well. But if you live in the Pittsburgh area, you can also get copies at our event on November 20th. And there's a lot of information on our website, www.hollyjoy.info/For She Who Grieves. Information about the event on the 20th, direct information to get your book, click right there. You can learn more about Amy, you can learn more about me, you can get excited and join us. You can share this with your friends, follow us on Facebook, come on over to my house for a cup of coffee. We got all the options, right, Amy?
We do, yeah. And I'm looking forward to the event on the 20th too, because the studio where we're having it, it's just perfect. It's just beautiful, big, large windows, open space. It smells good. It feels good. There's art. It's beautiful. It's a great place to share this book and the messages. And we'll do some readings, have some wine.
Some Cheese Queen of Pittsburgh will be there.
It'll be fun. Come join us.
Yes, I'm very excited for the event too. And if you're watching and you got really confused by all the links and everywhere to follow, never fear. I'm actually going to put the links in the comments of this. So you can just click there to head over to Amazon to get your 99-cent copy today only. And we would really appreciate the support on that because we're thinking this is going to be a bestseller. So that only helps us out. And for the event coming up on November 20th, 2022, the link will be in the comments as well. So thank you to everybody who watched us live and those who are catching us on the replay. And thank you especially to Holly and Amy for joining us today, for sharing your wisdom with us, and for creating this beautiful book.
Thank you.
You want to hold it up and let everybody see how gorgeous it is?
It's nice because people have been asking me like, when can I get the hardback? Can I get the paperback too? Because I don't read on the digital. I don't read Kindle. Yes, it's more fun to have this, honestly, because you can highlight it. They're like, oh, I want to put my notes in it. I want to highlight it. I want to go back and read it. So yes, the paperback is beautiful and it feels good. The 99-cent digital download is in support of our ratings and rankings on Amazon.com today.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much to everybody for joining us today.
Thank you.